Good afternoon. Before we start with the main presentation, I'd just like to quickly remind you that you can share your feedback and engage with the Hayes Salary Guide conversation on social media. Simply follow us on Twitter, and that Twitter handle is @HayesDigiTechUKI, which is spelled HayesDigiTechUKI, or connect with us on Facebook or LinkedIn and use the hashtag Hayes Salary Guide. Welcome to our webinar, and thank you for joining us today. I'm James Milligan from Hayes, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of our latest salary guide. By way of brief introduction, I've worked for Hayes for 19 years, and I'm responsible for our technology specialisms across the UK. Today, I'm joined by Sean Bave, who's the General Manager and Vice President from Stack Overflow, and he'll be sharing his insights into the software development market, as well as Nadira Hussain, who's the Director of Leadership, Development and Research from Socratim. Just a reminder that you can type questions at any time during the webinar, and we'll spend a few minutes at the end going over some of these. To start, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on this report. This is the 5th year we've produced our UK guide, which covers 12 specialist skilled and technical areas, supported by regional salary data for most roles. It's based on salary information provided by 1,800 recruiting experts from our 93 UK offices. As well as using our own extensive insights to inform the guide, we also launched a survey designed to ascertain employee satisfaction, employer concerns, and gather general insights into the market. This secured almost 23,000 responses from employers and employees, of which over 1,750 came from technology professionals. To start, let's set the scene by quickly recapping on the findings of last year's report. Across all professions, sectors and industries last year, 59% of organizations expected their business activity to increase. 71% said they were planning to recruit. There was a 1.8 average salary increase, or 1.8% average salary increase, and 55% of employees were considering moving jobs in the coming 12 months. This year, against the backdrop of continued economic and political uncertainty, hiring plans, which are the highest since our survey began 5 years ago, are under threat by skill shortages in an increasingly competitive labour market. Let's take a look at what the results of our survey showed in more detail. So let's start with the positives. Although there's obviously ongoing uncertainty, employers' business outlook remains robust, and employers are optimistic about the market and their businesses. Overall, there's been an increase in the number of UK employers across all specialisms and sectors predicting growth. 62% of employers forecast an increase to business activity levels in 2016 prior to the Brexit referendum. 57% immediately following the referendum. This compares to 59% last year and 61% this year. And consistent with last year, only 5% expect a decrease in activity. This is all good news and shows that employers are optimistic about business activity in spite of continued political and economic uncertainty surrounding the outcome of the negotiations. This optimism suggests organizations remain focused on opportunities ahead, regardless of wider market uncertainty. Looking specifically at the technology sector, we can see that employers are more optimistic than the UK average, with 69% predicting an increase in activity levels compared to the national average of 61%. This is a 4% increase from the year before and a very positive sentiment overall. This optimism is also translating into increased hiring plans, with employers continuing to invest in their recruitment and talent management strategies. Recruitment clearly remains a priority for employers, with 76% across the UK saying they plan to hire over the next 12 months. In fact, this is the highest percentage we've recorded in the 5 years of this report. When looking at the recruitment plans of technology employers only, this figure is even higher than the national average. 81% plan to recruit staff over the next year. This is also higher than last year, when 74% of tech employers said they would recruit staff. Of those looking to hire, 67% state that they plan to hire permanent staff, while 41% plan to hire contractors. This is even higher than last year when 61% plan to hire permanent employees and 35% plan to hire contractors. Despite a positive business activity and a hiring outlook, employers are faced with huge recruitment challenges. The vast majority of UK employers are in agreement that the talent market is at its most competitive for some time. In fact, 92% of UK employers say they experienced skills shortages in the last year. This is roughly on par with the sentiments of technology employers, 93% of whom say they've experienced skills shortages in the past 12 months. 85% of technology employers have experienced difficulty hiring permanent staff, and 63% reported challenges hiring contractors. For permanent employees, this is higher than the overall UK average, which saw 78% of employers experiencing difficulty hiring permanent employees. Although the same percentages, 63%, reported difficulty hiring contract resources. Skill shortages are apparent across many functional areas. Software development, infrastructure, and projects and change management are most needed by technology employers this year. Tech employers also expressed increased concern about competition from other employers. 57% expressed a concern about competition from other employers this year, which is significantly higher than the UK average of 48%. These hiring challenges look set to continue as 67% of tech employers expect to experience a shortage of suitable applicants when recruiting over the next 12 months. The importance of effective recruitment and retention plans is apparent, as 33% of employers do not believe that they have the talent needed to achieve current business objectives. The consequence of these ongoing skills shortages is being felt in employee morale and workplace productivity. Over 2/5 of technology employers, 41%, reported that skill shortages have had a negative impact on employee morale. This is an increase of 5% from last year. Even more technology employers, 54%, say skill shortages have had a negative impact on their ability to deliver projects. 52% have also reported a negative impact on their productivity, and 32% say skill shortages are adversely affecting their organizations' ability to grow and expand. The result of this competitive environment and urgent need to address the skills gap is continued pressure on employers to boost salaries. The overall average increase in salaries in the UK is 1.9%, but in areas of increased skills shortages, pay rises have been higher. The overall increase for salaries for tech professionals is similar at 1.7%. However, pay rises were larger than anticipated, as 35% of technology employers increased salaries by over 2.5% compared to just 26% who planned to. Regional hotspots for tech salary increases were in Yorkshire in the north, London, and Northern Ireland. Cybersecurity, software development, and the data and advanced analytics saw the highest rises of any technology disciplines. As you can see, certain roles saw very notable spikes in salaries, including senior front-end developers and data architects. As a quick point of comparison, those areas which have seen the highest salary increases over the last year are legal and construction property, which have both seen an average salary increase of 2.7%, and HR, which has seen an increase of 2.1%. The result of these salary increases has been a higher level of salary satisfaction among tech professionals. 70% say they're happy with their salaries compared to only 47% last year. There's been a drop in the number of requests for pay rises. Only 29% of professionals asked for a pay rise in the past 12 months, compared with 34% the previous year. Despite higher pay rises than expected and greater salary satisfaction, salary remains the biggest motivator for employees to change jobs. Looking back at these 12 months, 44% of technology professionals say they moved role in the last year, and an additional 41% considered it. This shows an openness to move from technology candidates and a talent pool of 85% when you compare active and passive that can be harnessed by tech employers to address their talent challenges. Of the 44% of technology professionals who say they moved role in the last year, the most common reason given was 35% was that the salary was too low. Amongst those who do not currently intend to move roles this year, 48% admit a better salary and benefits package would tempt them to change jobs. While the importance of effective talent attraction is apparent, so too are retention strategies. Existing professionals have demands. For example, employee movement due to salaries may be fueled by a mismatch in understanding and expectations around pay. While 73% of technology professionals say it's important that their organization is transparent about how pay levels and pay rises are set, only 35% feel this is currently the case. Another key driver of technology professionals' movements this year is likely to be around career prospects. 50% of tech professionals feel uncertain or negative about their career prospects in their current organization, which is a 5% year-on-year increase. Career progression is one of the main reasons why tech professionals are planning to move jobs. Employers continue to underestimate the appeal of offering positive work-life balance to prospective employees and the value this can have as a tactic in competing for talent. Only 20% of technology employers think work-life balance is important for attracting staff, whilst 37% of professionals prioritize this when they're considering a new job. 42% of technology professionals rate their work-life balance as very poor to average, indicating clear potential for employers to appeal to those seeking a more positive balance. The main request to improving work-life balance is a change in working hours, including adopting flexible working. While employers may be concerned about the impact of changing working hours when already struggling with staff shortages, offering and promoting these options is a valuable aid to attraction and retention. Benefits that aid work-life balance, such as generous holiday entitlement, are also attractive to employees. In what's been a whistle-top tour of some of our key survey findings, I'll take just a few moments now to summarise the key findings of our report. First, we've seen that despite the wider uncertainty caused by the ongoing Brexit negotiations, employer confidence in activity for the year ahead remains positive. As a result, recruitment remains a top priority for most organisations, reaching the highest level since our survey began 5 years ago. However, continued skill shortages exacerbated by increased competition from other employers look set to be the key challenge in the year ahead. These challenges may impact negatively on employee morale and productivity. Salaries are on the rise, but employees are still tempted to move role for higher salary and benefits package. It is clear that there is a significant active and passive talent pool which employers can engage with, but they need to offer the right salary and benefits, as well as a positive work-life balance and clear career prospects, which often include exposure to the latest technologies. Standing out is essential in today's market. While employers may once have looked to the same handful of companies as their competitions for staff, employees today are juggling multiple options, whether it's freelance work, contracting, working with startups in the emerging sector, or working for a global organisation. Employers need to be on the front foot and lead with a strong offer of salary and career potential, and a seamless applicant experience if they want to attract the best candidates in today's market. Last year, 42% of the candidates moved role, and another 40% considered it, showing a real openness from candidates to move roles for the right offer. Being clear about what makes you stand out as an employer, from salary and benefits to flexible working options, will help you appeal to candidates waiting for the perfect opportunity to move, who may be spoilt for choice in today's market. As 92% of employers have experienced skill shortages, and 68% say their top recruitment challenge is a shortage of suitable applicants, employers will need to be more creative in approaching these difficulties. Under a fifth, 17% of employers experiencing skill shortages had responded by increasing training budgets, which is a slight decrease from last year. suggesting that there's more employers can do to address their immediate skills gap with greater investment in training. Hiring for potential rather than just experience and investing in internal development programs would not only address the skills gap but help mitigate the negative impact on the employee morale associated with staff shortages, which 46% of employers say they've experienced, by providing the career development and opportunities that employees are seeking. As skill shortages intensify, looking for talent in the same place every time is no longer a reliable strategy. Employers can widen their talent pool by looking at different sources that pertain to diverse populations of talent, in addition to assessing their full application journey for inclusiveness. Online application processes that reinforce internal biases can result in loss of good quality candidates. From ensuring recruitment materials portray an organization's commitment to diversity and inclusion to implementing recruitment campaigns that attract talent from traditionally underrepresented groups, to be competitive in today's talent marketplace, employers must review their attraction strategy through their diversity and inclusion lens. So that's me finished on the findings of the survey, which are quite data intensive. I'm going to now hand you across to Sean Bave, who's the General Manager and Vice President at Stack Overflow, who is going to give some narrative specifically around the software development marketplace. So over to you, Sean.
Thank you, James. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. As James said, I'm Sean Bave. I'm the General Manager at Stack Overflow, and I'm responsible for our talent platform as well as our developer engagement products. By way of introduction, I'll just do a little bit of a background on Stack Overflow for some of you who might not be familiar, and then we'll get into the meat of what we're here to talk about today, which is salaries and the competitive nature of the market. So Stack Overflow is the #1 source for technical information. And so I'm going to be building off what James was talking about and just kind of diving into as much of the information that we have and as much of the data we've been able to put together to give you guys as much of an edge as you can take with you into the marketplace. So our mission is to serve the world's developers, and we want to enable your digital transformation within your company. So Stack Overflow launched about 8 years ago. It's a simple Q&A website where developers could come to ask questions, get answers to their problems. And in that time, we've grown into a community where 50 million developers come each month to learn, share their knowledge, and level up in their careers. The best way I can kind of explain it to anyone who's not a software developer is think about your own job. Think about how much time you spend searching for information, asking your colleagues, just stuck trying to figure out a problem. Imagine if you could type that problem into Google, and every time you did, the same website popped up with good quality information about the problem that you're having. The answer was there. There was no nonsense approach, and that's kind of what we built on Stack Overflow. It's for software developers. It gives them the answers to their problems, and that's why 95% of the English-speaking developer population worldwide is on Stack Overflow every month. In fact, 51,000 people are on the site now, and over 8 million developers will visit the site today. And because of that, Stack Overflow has the allegiance and the affinity of the developer community, and because they've been willing to visit us so much and have been using us for so long and are doing so much, we now have know a incredible amount about them. By looking at all the activity, we can understand an incredible amount about developers, both individually and collectively. So just to give you an idea of the scale and scope of the site, like I said, we'll have 50 million people use the site this month. The average person comes about 7 times. And over the last 8 years, we've built up 16.5 million questions, 25 million answers, and 165 million interactions. So a pretty engaged community, I would say, and this has given us an incredible amount of information into what developers care about and access to developers. This is just kind of an interesting way. On the brief times that that the site will go down, social media just explodes with developers making light of the fact that they won't be able to continue to do their jobs until the site has come back up. Just an interesting way to show that the affinity of the community. As we get into kind of the meat of the presentation here is. Sorry, the slides are a little bit behind. Here we go, catching up. So as we get into the meat of it here, we have done our own developer survey. We do this every year. For the 2018 survey, 100,000 developers completed it. Just to give you an idea of the extensiveness of it, the survey takes about 30 minutes to complete. And this is an unpaid thing. We just put it out to the community and look for their responses. And so we're always delighted to see kind of this number grow year over year. Last year was our best year to date. We're very excited about what's coming for 2019. But because developers are so invested in what we're doing, they're able to give us an incredible amount of information into the things that they care about. So what we've done is distilled this down today to kind of talk a little bit more about, salary information, technical trends, things about that your company can do to present well to developers and trying to attract talent in the marketplace today. So I guess we'll start with the challenging section of this. Hiring developers is definitely a challenge. James spoke to it. I'm sure all of you are seeing it as you go through your day. Our research shows that 32% of developers will never use a traditional job board. That's not to say they haven't used one. This is saying they will actually never use one. Like, it just does not come into their frame of reference. In a few moments, I'll go over what they're interested in knowing about a company, but really the problem with traditional job boards is that they're entirely geared at the active job seeker. And job listings on those types of sites are often kind of a list of demands from the company, and not in a way that not written in a way that shows developers why they'd want to work at a company and what they can expect from being in a company, what their day-to-day will look like, what the company's culture is like. The really kind of important things for a developer to assess: is this the kind of place I want to spend a great deal of time and energy and build my career on? And at the moment, I'm sure you guys are all seeing this is an incredibly candidate-driven market. The research shows us there are 5 open jobs for every 1 qualified developer, and that talent gap is widening, especially in certain sectors. I mean, if you look at things like machine learning, I mean, this is considerably more than 5 to 1. And so, moving through the challenges, at the moment in the United Kingdom, 89% of developers are not actively looking for a new job. So if you think about that in terms of the overall market, our community is extremely strong in the United Kingdom. We estimate about 18 million users on the site this year so far. If we take just 10% of that, that's 1.8 million, which feels like a good number until you start distilling that down into, again, those specific technologies that are so highly in demand: machine learning, AI, experienced full stack software developers. I mean, the pool gets small very quickly. And so what we try to work with people on and try to remind people on is that they need to build a kind of a more holistic approach to the marketplace and a more holistic approach to recruiting. What the data shows is the only effective way to consistently hire software developers is to take this kind of approach. That means building up an employer brand, engaging in the right channels and messaging to get the news of your culture out there, the type of company that you are. And really thinking about this as a long-term pipeline and managing to that effect. There are very few quick wins left in recruiting software developers. The market is just too competitive, and the world is shrinking as remote work and relocation become more of the norm. If companies aren't taking a specialized approach to building and managing this pipeline, hiring software developers will always be a challenge, and even more of a challenge than it has to be. Companies need to take a look at how they structure salaries, how they structure their benefits, how they've built their culture, how they've built their technical stack, and what learning and development opportunities they offer in order to be competitive. So just to dive into that a little bit more, 82% of developers in the United Kingdom consider salary the most important form of compensation or benefits, meaning it's not the only thing that they think about when they make the decision to apply for or pursue a new job, but it is the most important on the list. And so 82% in terms of the countries that we have is definitely on the high end. The UK developers seem much more salary driven, which means that companies need to be taking an honest look at the market to understand how they compare and if there needs to be changes in their salary and compensation policies to be more competitive. That doesn't mean you have to always be at the high end of the range, but being within the range is fairly important. And if you can't compete dollar for dollar, it's extremely important that you supplement that in any way that you can. So things like, do you have additional health benefits? Do you cover things like transportation or the gym, or do you have a flexible work policy? We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's extremely important. Do you have any company-sponsored learning and development opportunities? If you're not competitive on salary, you're not going to be able to even get that far in the conversations with developers in the United Kingdom if you can't also structure a good package. So these are just things to consider and there's resources available to you to understand where your salaries land in the range. But it's extremely important that you're taking an honest look at the packages that you're putting forth in the market. And James talked about this as well. I think transparency is hugely important throughout the recruiting process for software developers, but it really starts with the salary ranges in the United Kingdom when you get off the jump here. Stack Overflow, we have a job board And what we've seen is 75% increases in click-through rates when you show a job salary range. Even if the job is not that, even if you don't have a competitive salary, we still see an increase in click-through rates versus a job that doesn't list a salary. Transparency is a hugely important thing to the software development community. And frankly, if you're not putting forth your entire list of benefits, including your salary at the start, I don't think, it's very rare that you'll get deeply into a conversation with an experienced software developer, especially one that's not actively seeking, right? We've talked about how small the active market is. If you want to get experienced software developers, you're really trying to tap into that passive market. And in order to do that, you really have to be open and upfront with them about the opportunity presented and what the benefits are. Salary is not the only thing that matters. We've talked a little bit about that today. Developers also care about the technical frameworks and the tech stack that they'll be working in. This can often be a very hard thing for HR to influence within an organization. If you're on the recruiting side, you don't often have any real purview into what technical choices have been made. But if you do find that you're losing out on candidates because of the technology that you use, it's important to get the feedback to the technical organization. It's a non-trivial change. I don't know that's going to happen overnight, certainly to make a change like this, but it's definitely a partnership between HR and the technical side of the organization to be able to recruit software developers and retain software developers. So at the very least, I think we encourage our clients to work with their technical counterparts to come up with some talking points to help candidates understand the technical choices that you've made and the technical environment that they'll be working in. And then, kind of moving off from there, career development has been a growing priority. This is something that we've seen grow over the last few years. This isn't just about having an org chart that people can move through where they can get promoted or have career advancements. It's actually more focused on what skills developers can learn and grow while they're at your company. So things like company-paid continuing education, bringing in outside speakers or having regular training sessions. Do you allow developers or sponsor developers to go to outside conferences? The technology landscape is changing fast, and being a software developer can often feel more like a calling than a job. So any opportunity that you can give to help people stay abreast of new technologies is going to benefit your company, but it's also going to be a differentiating point as you try and recruit new software developers. And then moving on from there, 42% of developers value a strong company culture. This is something that James touched on. And strong company culture can be presented in a few different ways. But some of the basics are, can you give a developer a clear mission statement? Do you value communication and transparency within your organization? Are you able to easily communicate that value to that your company provides? And as far as the recruiting process, are you able to easily communicate what a developer will gain from being part of your organization? What will they work on? Are they building something that millions of people will see and use, or will they be helping someone, or really kind of focused on the value that your company is driving and where the developer fits in and where they can make a difference. And then work-life balance is hugely important. As the newer generation enters the workforce, the dynamic is changing, and I think this will continue to be a hot-button issue. This can take a few forms. The basics are obviously paid time off and sick leave. Understanding kind of where your competitors fall on that's important, meaning what your competitors are offering in terms of paid time off and sick leave. But I also think it's, if you go back to the theme of transparency, I think it's important that you have a philosophy as a company that you believe to be right and fair, and that you can communicate to a candidate about what you're offering in that regard and what they can expect. That's probably table stakes at this point, but things like parental leave, mental health benefits, company outings and events are becoming increasingly more important. And having said all that, all those things are important. I think the most important thing that we're seeing is flexible work. So that's not just flexible work hours, although that's certainly part of it. It's also the ability to work from home or work remotely part-time or even full-time remote opportunities are a big differentiator for the company. The full-time remote option is something that we've seen a lot of companies have a huge amount of success with. It extends your pool of candidates, obviously, greatly. Could be all of the United Kingdom or all of Western Europe or the whole world. It really depends on what your company can bear. And it can often be a fairly large change for an organization to make. But if it's something that your company can invest in, it's a hugely important factor and differentiates you quite a bit within the market. The way that we communicate with each other is changing. the way that the technical teams collaborate. It's almost entirely online. So this remote work has been a increasingly important issue, and I think we're going to see that trend continue over the next several years. And so with that, I think the last thing I'll leave you with is there's plenty of information out there. If you are interested in developer salaries, we have a free calculator, a salary calculator that we have accessible on Stack Overflow. We also publish the insights from our developer survey publicly if you want to go take a look at those as different resources available to you. But I appreciate the time. We'll be around for questions, and I'll turn it over to Nadira.
Many thanks. So, Nadira Hussain, I have already been introduced. I'm the Director of Leadership Development and Research at SOCTIM. Before I launch into what the Society is and why we exist, a little bit about myself. So I've been with the Society for nearly 3 months, been a member of the Society for an awful long time, probably in the order of about 18 to 20 years, but have formally joined after working in the public sector for a period of 25 years or thereabouts. Latterly as the head of ICT at Enfield Council, and before that at Tower Hamlets Council. Hopefully people will have an understanding as to what the public sector does. It is a very diverse environment, ranging from local government, central government, blue light services, health, education, further education, etc. Now, what the Society does is it's a network of digital leaders, very much focusing on the requirements of national public services and improving the service delivery through the adoption of digital transformation. So generally, a very brief update for you. We have over 2,000 members across the UK. We're very much focusing on our CIOs, CDOs, technical officers, directors, heads of ICT, and a whole plethora of digital leaders. A little bit about the transformation that the Society is undertaking as we currently speak. So it's been in operation since 1986, where the local government agencies particularly came together because they felt that there was a need to share expertise, experiences, and their challenges, and a collaborative effort to try and overcome these. Now, that's 32 years in the making. We have got to a point where clearly we understand that the wholesale change and the exponential way in which public services are being transformed is not just the responsibility of the ICT or digital profession. It has far more outreaching impact, such that we are now looking to embrace and work more collaboratively with our data professionals, our cybersecurity professionals, social care, and also health, where the integration between social care and health is absolutely paramount in terms of how we deliver slicker, more integrated and collaborative public services. From a policy perspective, just to give you an overview in terms of the areas that we are very much focusing our efforts on, it is the ethical use of emerging technologies. As has already been described, the pace of change within both the sector itself and more widely, we are very much focusing on newer and emerging technologies. Machine learning has been mentioned, AI, robotics, drones. We, from the Society's perspective, need to understand how we can use these technologies in an effective way to help translate and achieve the outcomes that we want to achieve for the public sector. But actually, the nub of the issue here is, what are the ethical aspects that we need to ensure that we are covering off when we are sharing data amongst health colleagues? What are the implications of ensuring that we are doing that in a safe and secure way, and that information is not landing itself in hands that shouldn't receive it? What happens when devices or otherwise are misplaced or lost, and how are we protecting our devices, our environment and our data? We're also very much focusing on the redesign and transformation aspect of our service delivery. So this isn't just focusing on online transactions via the web. This is whole end-to-end transformation of service delivery such that we are ensuring that services are more accessible, give a better customer experience, and that it's not the kind of siloed and fragmented way in which typically public sector services have been to date. So it's how do we ensure that that re-engineering for end-to-end services is taking place. A key area that I've already mentioned is the integration between health and well-being. This is absolutely pivotal as we streamline the way in which health and social care is joined up such that we have better integration and, once again, accessible services for the public that we serve. The area of my expertise, diversity, skills and leadership, this is absolutely paramount as we move into the new ways of working. How do we equip our organisation, our workforce, our teams, our leaders to ensure that they have the digital acumen and responsiveness to emerging and newer ways of working, to respond to those in a more appropriate fashion? And finally, cyber resilience, very much linked to the first policy theme of ethical use of emerging technologies. What do we do and how do we ensure that our environments, data, devices, infrastructure is protected to ensure that we can deliver our services in the safest way possible? Just very, very quickly, in terms of the offer from the society, we have a leadership academy that is delivering some leadership programs that is helping our workforce to respond to the challenges as I've described. A senior leaders course, an empowering women in the digital world, and finally a top talent, those middle tier managers that we are helping to propel and overcome the issue that I think we absolutely face in the sector, which is one of succession planning. How are we ensuring that there is a throughput of those skills and attributes to ensure that we have CIOs, CTOs and those leaders as the next generation? We certainly use our research and publications to help inform the sector. We have a benchmarking service in terms of how we improve through our comparative analysis. We share the information expertise and networking capability through our local and regional events. And we also have an advisory arm, which is our consultancy arm for discrete pieces of work that we undertake for authorities and councils. So I really want to focus, given the background of the information that we've heard, in terms of salary being a pivotal focus for technology specialists, I wanted to take the opportunity to sell the public sector. I think it's hugely exciting working in the sector because, as I've described, it's a hugely diverse environment. It covers off more than one would just imagine in terms of government services. There is a whole plethora of agencies that constitute the sector. And more than anything else, the fact that you have the opportunity to do civic good and deliver social value, so absolutely working to help the most vulnerable people in our communities, our adults, the ageing population, the young children that require protection and perhaps may be on registers that we need to provision for their safeguarding, all the way through to a whole plethora of services, including housing, social care, education, environmental services, planning, etc. It's hugely interesting in terms of the areas where you may be able to apply your expertise. And of course, there is an opportunity to cross-agency work, so across the various agencies that I've just described, but even partners and suppliers that the sector is dependent on in terms of working closely with to deliver the outcomes and the ambitious aims that the agencies and the sector want to achieve. And of course, there are specialisms within the agencies as well. So if I cite my example over in the London Borough of Enfield or Enfield Council, being the head of ICT, having run the service for the council itself, we had services and functions all the way from the service desk through to the network and infrastructure teams, through to the server and environment, as the more technical areas, and of course those more, I wouldn't say non-technical, but softer skills such as project management, business analysis, relationship management, where the opportunity to build relationships and work more closely with the business to understand the requirements and translate those requirements into technical solutions. So in essence, the sector is a highly attractive one because of the diversity and because of the extent of opportunities that it presents. I now want to focus on how we as a sector have addressed some of the, or starting to address some of the recruitment and retention issues that have been highlighted, and we know continue to be issues as we move forward. The skill shortages that have clearly been spelt out, the 93% that James alluded to earlier on, and the 85% gap in terms of the difficulty in recruiting to those permanent positions. I certainly have experienced that without a doubt. And however attractive I have made my job advertisements or the reach that I have tried to achieve within the existing means of attracting folk hasn't always been successful. But let me just tell you a little bit about what we have tried to do within the sector to try and overcome some of those difficulties. The work-life balance and the mobile flexible working is a huge benefit within the sector. We are very, very conversant with the needs of diverse working, the workforce requirements. We have a luxurious holiday package that we do offer within the sector. So I think we start at something like, for newcomers, 22 days, moving up to 27 days, and for a 5-year length of service, I think that moves up to 32 days. That's hugely beneficial for people who want to travel, do other things with their time, voluntary work or otherwise. In terms of other flexibility, teachers or folk that want to work more to support their children, they have the ability to make those arrangements in consultation with their HR department. So there is a whole plethora of ways in which we can help facilitate better working arrangements, especially for those who have children and caring responsibilities. We are trying to move away from bums on seats and visibility to working in own time, and some of this is demonstrated with people having to leave work early and collect children from school. If they are then able to pick up their working requirements at the end of the day or when it suits them, then that is something that is appreciated and supported without a doubt. There is the opportunity of defined pathways, so very much from a council perspective, but also if I just reference the Leadership Academy that we have in place from Soccertim, we're very much talking about career pathways for cyber security individuals and for data specialists. It is giving an opportunity to individuals to understand where they can take their careers within a determined way. The other thing that we use in the sector is the skills framework for the information age. This gives you a level 1 to 7 view of the ways in which you progress that career within a discrete role within the sector. There are numerous opportunities of learning and development, both from an internal training perspective, shadowing, secondment opportunities across the sector, and very much tapping into the likes of the Microsofts and AWSs of this world, where we've been able to tap into the opportunities that they present to upskill our technical folk. There are internal talent management and professional development opportunities. Each council will have their own, focusing with their HR department to ensure that there is continuity and an opportunity for people who want to progress their careers to take opportunity of learning development and other skills development programs within the organisation itself. I really want to turn my attention very much to the apprenticeships, both from the Leadership Academy perspective here and the levy that's been made available to organisations within the sector. What this allows us to do is have apprenticeship opportunities for young folk who want to come in and understand what the technical or digital environment offers to them. That will allow them to start at an entry point within the service, so service desk typically, and will allow them to experience other roles and responsibilities within the service so that they can grow, develop, and hopefully find formal roles within the actual service or beyond. A hugely popular piece of work that we did at Enfield was the Career Returners Programme. What this has allowed us to do is focus specifically on women returners into the workforce who've had to take a break or an opportunity to care for elders or other family folk or bring up their children. I ran 2 successful cohorts in Enfield. The first was a returning individual to an enterprise architecture role. The second cohort, a host of responsibilities within the service. The benefit that the individuals returning back to work in terms of improving confidence and their ability to secure roles within the sector has been phenomenal. Finally, just a bit about pensions. We have an extremely good pension plan in this sector, so if all else fails, that is something that at least would protect you when you decide to move on, and allows you to secure some funds for retirement. I think that was it from my perspective. A very quick tour in terms of what we've done within the sector, how exciting it is, how diverse it is, and the things that we're trying to do to retain talent.
Thank you very much, Nadira. Very interesting insights from the public services. We have some questions that have been logged by the chat function or the Q&A function. Just a reminder that you're able to do that. So if anybody else wants to ask any specific questions around either the public services or software development or just general sector, I'm happy for us to provide what insights we can. The obvious question, I suppose, that has come up for us is around Brexit. And with everything that's going on at the moment and sort of current sentiment within the market and expectations moving forward from here, and I think obviously it's very topical. It's an interesting one. The question itself has been: has business outlook or confidence changed since we took the survey, which was a number of months ago now, and obviously in light where we are with Brexit negotiations. And that survey was actually taken in the summer, so arguably there was less clarity then on what Brexit would look like. And at that point, employers were still very optimistic about the year ahead. We recognise that most businesses and organisations are looking at Brexit to bring much needed clarity, so that to the broader industry, but it doesn't appear to have impacted on the hiring plans at the moment. We're still seeing and have seen over the last 8 weeks sustained contractor hiring and permanent hiring, and in fact December, which traditionally can be a more quiet month for starters, has been probably the best month that we've seen in the last quarter in terms of permanent starters going in. So to date, we haven't seen dramatic shifts when we look at sort of like key metrics from the survey. However, saying that, right, it's going to be very interesting to see the results of next year's survey and post Brexit or post whatever the outcome is, to see what impact it's had. So at the moment, as I said, like we are still seeing sort of continued market confidence, but it'll be interesting to see what that looks like and translates into the next year. Next question I got, and I suppose this is one that I might open up to Sean. They said, do we expect salaries to continue to rise over the next 12 months? So, Sean, what's your view from sort of the software development community?
Yeah, I think whenever it's a competitive marketplace, you'd expect salaries to rise, especially if the supply and demand part of the market's going to change. As you mentioned, it's hard to know exactly how Brexit's going to affect the marketplace, but I would expect salaries are definitely going to go up. To what extent, it's hard to say. This past 12 months, as you noted in your presentation, has been kind of a boom in that regard. But as long as the economy stays strong, which obviously is kind of an open question at this point, and the marketplace stays as competitive as it is, I don't see any reason why they would stay flat or go down. I think they're only going up, at least on my side of the world.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. So, like, jobs are being created in tech at a rate where it's disproportionate to the number of candidates being generated. So, whilst there's more people coming into the sector and the pipeline is broader than it's ever been, right? And you look at some of the innovation we're talking about within Nadira's world in terms of what they're doing to either get people to come to the sector or return to the sector, the job creation is happening at a faster rate than the candidate creation. So there's a gap, and I can't see that gap closing at any point soon. So, that will, I think there'll continue to be salary pressures within the sector. And, it's, for me, like, tech is a global marketplace, not just a UK-wide marketplace. And these are issues that we're seeing across Europe, across the globe, right? There's no market where there is enough supply of talent to match demand. So that will continue to put wage pressure or bring wage pressure into play. I also do think, though, right, that while salary is the most important factor, and we've recognised that, right, through our data and your data, there are other things that are important. And as you talk about the change in workforce demographic, we need to be very cognizant of those things that motivate those individuals. And I think, purpose is critical. People will take jobs at a lower salary, right, as long as it's around the right ballpark, if they see purpose, and you'll see that. And Nadira, you might want to comment on this, but I'd say that's something you see within your sector.
Yeah. Just to say, James, that even in the public sector, we have had to do some comparative analysis and have used your salary benchmarking guide to enable us to ensure that salaries are the right ballpark. So it's not that we're saying everything else, we're trying everything else, and we're not even focusing on the salary. We absolutely are. We understand that professionals are professionals in their own right, and we need to ensure that we're not, trying to pay them peanuts. But there is absolutely an opportunity to offer other benefits that will attract people who perhaps may be at different stages of their working professional careers. So what we have seen is more recently taking the right ballpark salary, but seeing the additional benefits and people feeling attracted to come to the sector because they want to deliver some civic good, because they want to return back to the communities that has given so much to them. So that's been a big selling point for us.
I think we have time for sort of one last question. It's quite a broad question, right? So I'll give my view on it, and then I'll open up to the other panel members. But as it focuses on the last question that we discussed, but it's saying, with such acute skill shortages, what can employers do to attract the candidates that they need? And as I said in the previous question, or in response to the previous question, there is that gap at the moment. And I think for me, right, attraction, I think organisations have to take a multi-channel approach to generating that, or to engage in the market. I think, as Sean said previously, software developers are not going to respond to your online adverts, right? You have to have a multi-channel strategy in terms of how you're going to engage the market. That active candidate pool is only a relatively small part of the candidate pool, and you need to look at how you're building pipeline, how you're proactively engaging with the people that you would potentially want to employ in the future, and most importantly, what's your message to them? What's your brand? What do you represent? Why would somebody want to work for you with so much choice? That differentiate you from another employer, and it's something for me that's worth spending some time on. If you don't, if you as an organisation, whether you're a large employer or a small employer, if you don't know what it is that differentiates you and makes people want to work for you, then you don't really have anything compelling to sell to the audience that you want to engage with. So for me, one of the critical things is understand where your channels, which channels you need to engage on. Where does your talent hang out? software developers. One of the reasons why we're engaged with Stack Overflow is because we know that that's a channel. It's one of the key places where they hang out. And if we don't hang out where they hang out, then we're not going to be able to develop the relationships we need to fill the jobs of the future. But then also we have something to say. If we don't have something that's compelling to say on behalf of our customers, or you as an employer have something compelling to say, then the audience doesn't engage with you, because there's lots of opportunity around it. I'm gonna open that out a little bit further and say, Nadira, what's your view on this, and then I'll leave Sean to have the final word on it.
Thank you, James. So I think you're absolutely right. I think very much from the sector's perspective, we are looking as to how we embrace a more inclusive, diverse, open, transparent, engaging culture. So very much before leaving Enfield, the chief exec, the senior stakeholders and leaders of the organization had very much predicated focusing on a culture that was embracing and all of the things that I've just articulated. So when you talk about brand and attracting people, it's why should they come and work with a local authority or a council? That's one thing. The second thing that I can just share in terms of a practical solution is growing your own. So if in the environment where there are skill shortages, we've made some concerted effort within the sector to try and invest and train and reskill or retrain folk so that they have the skills that are the shortage, the skills that are in shortage in question. We have tried to spend some time and effort doing that.
Okay, thanks, Nadira.
Yeah, no, I think both of you made some great points there, highlighting diversity and transparency and communications, hugely important, and then obviously just how you present yourself. I guess to one more specific point is learning and development, and how you invest in your talent as it comes in, and what they can expect when they start in terms of the growth that they'll have while working there. One of the tactics that we have taken as a company for our own hiring needs is we have an internship program where we bring in software developer interns who are a little bit more junior and invest in growing their skill set so that they grow into long-term employees. Some of them stay with us, some of them don't, but are you hiring smart people and then investing in them to get the skills up to what you need, right? So that's more of a long-run approach that you could take as a business. But overall, I think it's been well said that how you present yourself and to the community, what kind of message, what kind of mission statement you have, all those things are hugely important and really influence the culture that you're able to present to potential candidates.
Okay, look, I'm going to wrap this up now. I'd like to thank both Sean and Nadira for their insight today. It's been very, very interesting. I have a question. Is the salary guide available on the website? Yes, you can request a copy online. So if you go onto the website, you're able to request a copy online. And again, thank for everybody who attended today. So the URL for that request a copy online is hayes.co.uk/salary -guide. Once again, that's hayes.co.uk/salary -guide. Thanks very much for your time, and have a lovely afternoon. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.